Nick Nurse came out and directly stated the 4 players that are fighting for those last couple of roster spots, and the list might surprise some Raptors fans, so we're going to dive into all that in this video. Additionally, Khem, Birch, and Chris Boucher spoke out on Pascal Siakam's growth as a player and as a leader, and that paired alongside Rico Hines' comments, along with Pascal's goals of being a top 5 player of the season. We're going to see likely going to see a massive leap from Pascal. So I'll break down all those quotes in this video. And we finally found out what that mysterious injury from Khem Birch was last season. So a bunch of stuff to talk about. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And the first thing we're discussing, the first thing we're talking about are the 4 players fighting for those final 2 roster spots. Now, the end of the bench has been a large topic of discussion, especially in the latter half of the summer. We had the KD phase where everyone was hoping that trade might potentially go down. Donovan Mitchell was there. We had some free agent stuff, but after the roster sort of came into form, people were speculating what guys are actually going to make this team, because we have a lot of unguaranteed players. We have some guys that were on guaranteed contracts that ended up getting the cut, getting the wave, and speaking of, I'm referring to Svg Water on that front. Get to play these animations while he's still mildly relevant in the minds of Raptors fans. But we actually had Nick Nurse come out and state who's in the running to potentially lose their roster spot, who's in the mix for getting their unguaranteed contracts guaranteed and all that sort of stuff. But he essentially stated that Nick Nurse, on the battle for the final roster spots, it's between Delano Banton, Justin Champagnie, Josh Jackson, as well as DJ Wilson. And Nick Nurse essentially said that we do a staff vote every single day, and that vote changes every single day. You can tell it's very competitive. Now, that's interesting because a lot of people, while he might be a more notable name on the Raptors team, given his roles as an actor and all that sort of stuff, Juancho Hernangomez, while he did sign a guaranteed contract, while he did come into the team with the money up front, right? He'll get paid over the course of the year, but that minimum deal that he signed is locked in for this year, so he's going to get that money regardless. But given the battles that were sort of happening at the end of the bench, how much we know the Raptors front office likes DJ Wilson, the stature of Josh Jackson, obviously the potential of Delano Banton and Justin Champagnie, he was a guy that was also getting thrown into the mix as a player that could potentially be waived, could potentially have his contract cut off and thrown out if other players were sort of stepping it up. But Nick Nurse coming out and directly stating these comments, and I also want to address, before I dive into the analysis on this, Gabe Brown, he's going to be playing for the 905. He's not really in the running, even though he won over a lot of Raptors fans' hearts with his performances in the Rico Hines runs and all that sort of stuff. But it's really these 4 guys fighting for those last 2 roster positions, and it's going to be a tough battle. It's going to be an interesting fight there at the end of the bench. Now, Delano Banton is the guy that clearly has the most upside out of the group. Just currently, as is his long arms, his court vision, the developing 3-point shot. He's also from Toronto. He's the guy that's probably the fan favorite in terms of this group of players between him, Champagnie, Josh Jackson, and DJ Wilson. However, there are some holes in his games currently that might put him as a tier below some of those players as is currently in his state, especially what we saw on Team Canada. Didn't take a huge step forward there in terms of not turning over the basketball and stuff, right? Delano Banton was getting thrown into games last season. Teams were just going to 2-3 zones, and he was completely left essentially useless out there on the court. But I say all that to qualify that his potential, those long arms with everything, it just wouldn't make sense to not guarantee that contract, to let him go, to let him walk, to cut him off. But it's going to be made tough. Now, Champagnie is a guy that I think is probably the best player out of this group just as is. He's a 3-point shooter. He hustles on defense. He was a rotation guy for this Raptors team for a large chunk of last season. He's also a young player. He's probably one of the better offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding wings in the NBA already. He has that NBA level skill regardless of what else he's doing out there on the court. So Delano and Champagnie might be my 2 favorites to actually make the roster. However, what Nick Nurse is sort of saying in that tweet, things are changing every single day, and we know how much this Raptors front office loves DJ Wilson. Currently, for the Raptors Summer League team we saw this summer, he had some up and down moments. His three-point shot looked very encouraging at times. He's able to hit those corner threes, make some middies, make some, the jump shots looking pretty sweet for a 6'10 big man. We don't have many guys over 6'9 on the roster, so he has that going for him as well. And yes, he does have his iffy moments. He doesn't have that exciting upside. He's 25 years old, as maybe a Champagny and a Delano Banton do, but the Raptors want to win now, and they're going to bring in guys to the deep bench that can certainly fulfill a role. And he might be able to do that better than a couple players, especially in a position of need. Even though we do have Koloko, Precious, Chris Boucher, Thad Young, we have an all-around team there with the Raptors roster. But being over 6'9 is a plus in terms of making this Raptor squad. And then there's the wild card, the guy that was brought in late, and that is Josh Jackson, who obviously was the 4th pick in the NBA draft a few years back. Fizzled out with the Phoenix Suns, played for the Kings, played for the Pistons, had some moments, certainly had some moments. There's a point in his career where he was averaging 13 points per game, I think only a season and a half ago, right? Plays solid defense as an energy, athletic big man who can knock down some shots in his own right, but it's good. Preseason's really going to define which of these guys are really going to make the roster and what the Raptors are interested for. If what we're planning on doing at the point guard slot, because obviously Malachi Flynn is a guy that I think has the edge on Delano Banton, just given their whole body of work, what we saw from the two of those guys last season. But if Scotty Barnes shows, if we're starting Scotty at point guard, we still have Fred on the roster, then we have Malachi. Delano might become a little less needed in a position of need or something like that, even though I think we're keeping him just for the development, for the potential. He could show a couple years down the line, but preseason's really going to dictate who's going to make these spots. And if Champagny, Jackson, and Wilson, I think Delano's there. I'm stating this now. I'm thinking Delano's there. You can probably lock that in. I'd be shocked if he ends up getting cut. But between Champagny, our guy Champagny, Poppy, right? Champagny, Josh Jackson, and DJ Wilson, I think it's the player that's going to provide the most on the offensive end. 3 of those guys, pretty versatile defenders, are effective on the defensive end, but the Raptors need shooting. They need guys that can come in, knock down some shots, and if we have injuries and stuff, that's really the best way to complement our top core group, as we have a lot of athletic facilitators in our starting 7, starting 8. So the players that can knock down the shots, whether it be in training camp, whether it be in preseason, the body work we'll get to see, I think those are the guys. And I'm predicting Champagny Poppy's getting it. I predict Wilson and Jackson will end up getting cut. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because as Nick Nurse said, it's changing left, right, and center. But the next thing we're talking about, the next thing we're discussing is Pascal Siakam being in the MVP conversation this season. Now, Siakam caught some headlines, especially when he said he was going to be a top 5 player. But these have been pushed a little bit more by for his fellow teammates on the Raptors. And the first one's coming from Chris Boucher. So that Pascal Siakam looks like he did in the NBA Finals, where he could score on anybody. Says he could see him being in the MVP conversation this year. This is not light praise. This is not saying, oh, Siakam took a step forward. This is not, oh, he's our leader, he's our number 1 option, all this. MVP is a serious thing in this league. And Siakam wasn't sniffing that a couple seasons ago, last season, where even when he was an all-NBA guy, right? Siakam's never been at that level. So for Chris Boucher, a guy that's a veteran, the guy that played with MVP and Steph Curry, played with Kawhi Leonard, for him to be making comments like this, that's kind of big. I know it could be written off as someone just talking about their teammate, just trying to gas up the fans, gas up YouTubers like the Raptors Digest and stuff, but I don't know. The way people are talking about Siakam, it's very reminiscent of that 2019 offseason where people were talking about, oh yeah, Pascal Siakam's going to be a guy that sneaks up on a lot of people, because he was a bench player for that Raptors bench mob just that season prior, and then he got those Rico Hines runs in. Kawhi came in and was the complimentary piece on a championship roster. So the talk sounds similar about a step up in level of play. So we'll see if that ends up happening. And Khem Birch also iterated that on his just work ethic and everything he's doing to get better. When he wakes up in the morning, I don't even think he eats breakfast or stretches. He works out for hours before practices and then works out for another hour after practice, right? I've never seen anything like it. these are NBA guys. These are not just people like me gassing up players, that aren't in there day in, day out. These are serious things about Pascal Siakam's development. So let me know what you guys think about Pascal's ceiling for this upcoming year. But the next thing we're talking about, Khem Birch just gave a quote there, but he also discussed his mysterious injury that he had last season. Now, Khem Birch was in and out of the lineup last year, and while he looked really good for the Raptors in that Tampa tanking season, didn't look that hot this year. Now, there were a lot of moments where his veteran presence was needed. Precious Achiuwa, as much as I've been banging on the propaganda, still learning, still growing, and still sometimes he's a bundle of chaos in his game. And when things aren't going right for Precious Achiuwa, we need a center out there. Khem Birch is just stable. He's going to roll to the basket. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to make that little touch shot he has 5 feet out from the rim. And when he's healthy, he has some vert. He has an ability to dunk, block shots, and all that sort of stuff. And that's what we saw in the Tampa year. But last year, it was just a complete mess for Khem. Wasn't able to really stay on the court. When he was there, he kind of looked like Amir Johnson at the end of his tenure with the Raptors, hobbling around, not able to get off of it. And then, Khem Birch, we figured out what it was, what that knee injury actually occurred last season. And it was a torn meniscus. And he discovered it when he actually had surgery. Now, torn meniscus, there's always weird things. I tore my lateral and medial meniscus. They're not fun injuries. But sometimes you can still play on it, and that's what we saw from Khem Birch. The tests, they have a drawer test that they do to sort of shake the leg together, but obviously when there's inflammation, when there's pain going on the knee, if there's other ligaments torn, it's tough to really pinpoint that the meniscus itself is something that's torn. So it's the modern medicine's absolutely ridiculous, but the human knee is a just stupid injury to have. It sucks to deal with, it sucks to diagnose. So it's nice that they figured out the actual issue to Khem Birch's knee problems, and surgery will solve it. That's one thing that surgery does with the torn meniscus. They can shave out all the, I'm not a surgeon or a medical doctor by any means, but I have had the injury. They can do some things to fix it. So having a healthy Khem Birch would be a great insurance piece. As said, I think Khem Birch is a really solid backup center in the league, but now, given the fact we have Thaddeus Young, Chris Boucher back, Precious Achiuwa there, he is a perfect insurance big man for our roster. So having him healthy, ready to go for this entire season, especially to mentor Christian Koloko, you love to see that. But the final thing we're discussing is Drake recruiting a star on Instagram. Now, you love to see this. Obviously, our global ambassador doing his job, right? Finally out here trying to recruit, trying to do this thing to get players to come to Raptors. And he was, we had the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander drama. We broke it down in our most recent video. Drake is jumping on the bandwagon out here, posting a picture of Shai, Team Canada. While there's a bunch of talk about him potentially joining the Raptors and all that sort of stuff, right? Just stroking the fire a little bit. Stoking the fire. I'm using that phrase incorrectly, but we want to see Drake get more people to join the Raptor squad. Obviously, we didn't have consistent fans in the building for a while, but it'd be nice to see our global ambassador chilling on the sidelines once again, and hyping up some stars coming our way. But folks, you guys are the best to make this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Anyways, enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.